In the late 1990s, there was a moment when one name defined an entire genre. A name that meant base building, tension, iconic music, and the thrill of outthinking an opponent in real-time strategy. That name was Command and Conquer. For millions of players, Command and Conquer was not just a game, it was a ritual. You installed it from multiple discs, you memorized hotkeys, you listened to pounding industrial soundtracks while watching tanks roll across pixelated battlefields. And for a while, it felt unstoppable. But today, Command & Conquer is silent. No major new releases, no bold reinvention, no clear future. Fans ask the same question again and again. How did one of the most influential franchises in PC gaming history end up here? What went wrong? And who is really responsible? Now you might be thinking that franchises fade all the time. Technology moves on. Tastes change. But this story is not that simple, because Command & Conquer did not just slowly age out. It stumbled, it fractured, and it became a case study in how creative vision and corporate strategy can collide with devastating results. But here's where it gets interesting. The downfall of Command & Conquer did not begin with failure. It began at the very top. Command & Conquer was born in 1995 at Westwood Studios. At the time, real-time strategy was still a young genre. Westwood did not invent it, but they perfected it. The original Command & Conquer introduced a clean interface, clear faction identities, and a pacing that rewarded both aggression and planning. Then came Command & Conquer Red Alert. This was the moment the franchise exploded into pop culture. An alternate history setting, over-the-top units, campy live-action cutscenes, and a soundtrack that became legendary. Red Alert was fun, fast, and accessible without being shallow. Sales followed, millions of copies sold worldwide. Expansion packs followed quickly. The community grew, modders pushed the engine beyond its limits. Competitive play emerged organically. By the late 1990s, Command & Conquer was not just successful, it was dominant. Westwood understood their audience. They embraced PC gaming culture. They iterated without betraying the core experience. Each new title felt like a natural evolution rather than a betrayal. The peak came with Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun, and later Red Alert 2. These games refined the formula visually and mechanically. Tiberian Sun introduced darker themes, environmental storytelling, and a more serious tone. Red Alert 2 leaned fully into spectacle, humor, and multiplayer chaos. By this point, the franchise had sold over 10 million units. It was one of the crown jewels of PC gaming, and then something changed. In 1998, Westwood Studios was acquired by Electronic Arts. At first, this seemed like a win. More resources, bigger marketing, global reach. But under the surface, the incentives were shifting. Electronic Arts was built around scale, predictability, and annualized success. Westwood was built around creative experimentation and long development cycles. These two philosophies were about to collide. The first cracks appeared quietly. Development timelines tightened. Risk tolerance shrank. Market research began to matter more than designer instinct. The industry itself was changing too. Consoles were rising. Three-dimensional graphics were becoming the new standard. Command & Conquer struggled to adapt. Command & Conquer generals attempted a modern warfare angle with full three-dimensional graphics. It sold well, but it split the fanbase. Many players felt it lacked the soul and atmosphere of earlier games. Behind the scenes, Westwood was losing autonomy. Key developers left. In 2003, Electronic Arts shut down Westwood Studios entirely. Command & Conquer survived, but its original creators did not. From that point on, the franchise existed without its founding vision. Development was handed to internal Electronic Arts teams, who faced enormous pressure to modernize and monetize. Before we move on with the video, please like and subscribe. We want to hit 1,000 subscribers this week. Now let's move on. The most controversial moment came with Command & Conquer 4, Tiberian Twilight. This was not just a sequel, it was a radical redesign. Base building was removed, resource harvesting was gone, progression systems and always online requirements took center stage. Electronic Arts was chasing trends, like esports, free-to-play mechanics, and persistent progression. But in doing so, they stripped away the identity that made Command and Conquer special. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Longtime fans felt betrayed. Reviews were harsh, sales underperformed. What was meant to be a bold evolution became a public rejection. And then came the final blow. A planned free-to-play Command & Conquer reboot was announced, and then quietly canceled after disastrous fan feedback. At that moment, trust collapsed completely. Since then, Command & Conquer has existed in a kind of limbo. Mobile titles appeared briefly and vanished. Remasters arrived in 2020 and were well received, but they were nostalgic celebrations, not a path forward. Electronic Arts still owns the intellectual property. Ownership is not the same as stewardship. Without a clear creative vision or a willingness to take risks aligned with the franchise core values, Command & Conquer remains frozen. Fans continue to mod older games. Community servers remain active. The passion never disappeared, but the official support did. So what really killed Command & Conquer? The easy answer is Electronic Arts. Corporate greed, trend chasing, mismanagement, and yes, those factors matter. But the deeper truth is more complex. Command & Conquer failed because it lost its identity at a moment when identity mattered more than ever. As the industry shifted toward massive live services and console-focused design, the franchise needed a careful evolution. Instead, it received abrupt reinvention. The closure of Westwood severed institutional memory. The people who understood why Command & Conquer worked were no longer in the room. Decisions were made by metrics rather than instinct, by market trends rather than community trust. But wait, there's more to this story. The silence of Command & Conquer is a warning. It shows what happens when a franchise built on passion is treated as a product rather than a culture, when legacy is seen as a constraint rather than a foundation. The tragedy is that Command & Conquer never needed to become something else. It needed to become a better version of itself. Modern technology could have enhanced its strengths rather than replacing them. Today, the door is not fully closed. The success of remasters proves there is still demand. Strategy games are resurging, and audiences crave depth again. The pieces exist. What is missing is courage. Until then, Command & Conquer remains a monument to both brilliance and loss. A franchise that shaped a generation, and a reminder that in the games industry, success is fragile when vision is compromised. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel.